A small mountain town where time moves slower and loyalty still means something. I buried my husband, Tom, on a gray Saturday morning while the rain came down soft and steady, like the sky knew what was happening. No choir, no grandchildren, no son. Ben didn't come. Neither did Amanda, his wife. Not a flower, not a note, not a call during the service, just me, and Tom's old friends from the wood shop, and the neighbors who still remembered what it meant to show up. That morning, while I was pressing the suit Tom wore to our anniversary dinner last year, his favorite brown one, my phone rang. Ben's voice came through, casual as ever. "Hey, Mom. Look, I'm sorry, but Amanda's got her Series B pitch today, and I have a dinner with some VCs. You know how it is. I don't think Dad would have cared about some ceremony. It's just a formality, right?" A formality. That's what my husband's funeral was to him. The man who stayed up late helping with science projects. The man who took on double shifts when Ben got into that private college. A formality. I didn't argue. I just hung up, finished folding the tie, and let the silence press against my chest. The funeral was quiet but beautiful. Tom's former students came. So did the lady from the hardware store he always helped carry bags for. His Marine buddies showed up in full dress blues. There was honor in the room even if there was no sun in the front row. But that empty seat, it burned. Every kind word from friends, every handshake, it all passed through the hollow space Ben left behind. 3 weeks later, I got a letter from Henry Morris, Tom's old friend and our longtime attorney. "Lenora," he said, sitting across from me in his creaky leather chair. "Tom transferred the house to your name entirely, and he left this." He slid a sealed envelope across the desk. Tom's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. I opened it with trembling hands. "If Ben ever comes asking about the house, don't hand him what he didn't bother to stand up for. Make him show he's the man I hoped we raised." That same afternoon, a sleek silver Tesla pulled into my gravel driveway. Ben stepped out, dressed like he was headed to brunch, not to see the mother he hadn't visited in nearly a year. No Amanda with him this time, just him and a hopeful smile. "Hey, Mom," he said, kissing my cheek like old times. "Heard from Hank Morris that Dad might have left some unfinished paperwork, like the deed." I smiled faintly, not bitter, just steady. "He did," I said, motioning to the kitchen. "But I assumed you weren't interested in formalities." Ben flinched just slightly. He cleared his throat. "Amanda and I are dealing with some housing stuff. Rent's insane in Seattle. And, this place could use some updating. Maybe I could take it on, renovate it, keep it in the family. It'd be what Dad wanted, right? What Dad wanted. The same Dad you couldn't drive 4 hours to say goodbye to." I looked at him, really looked. My son, my only child. The boy who once built Lego cities with his father and now wanted to bulldoze the home Tom built with his bare hands. I stood up. "Your father left clear instructions, Ben," I said. "This house, and everything tied to it, is yours if you prove you deserve it." Ben laughed, the nervous kind. "Mom, what is this, a test?" I smiled just slightly. "No, this is a lesson, and you decide if you're ready to learn it." Ben didn't laugh again, not when I handed him an old key to the backyard shed. Not when I told him he could stay in the guest room for a while. Not when I said, "This house isn't a gift, Ben, it's a legacy, and legacy isn't inherited, it's earned." He blinked like he didn't quite understand me. "So, what? You're giving me chores now?" "I'm offering you time, let's see what you do with it." The weekend he moved in, I noticed he brought more tech than clothes. He tried to make small talk over dinner, told me Amanda was figuring things out back in Seattle, mentioned how the startup market's a bloodbath right now. I nodded, stirred my stew, didn't ask about their luxury apartment, didn't mention how quiet the house had been since the funeral. The next morning, I handed him a paint bucket and pointed to the fence in the backyard. "It's peeling." Week 1, Ben treated this like a corporate sabbatical. He asked where the Wi-Fi password was. He had protein shakes delivered. He took Zoom calls from the porch with people named Tanner and Keitlin who used words like burn rate and exit velocity. He rolled his eyes when I reminded him about the gutters. He forgot to mow the lawn twice. He told me, "This isn't really my thing, Mom." So I left a copy of Tom's will on the kitchen table, just one page highlighted. Ownership of 310 Fernridge Lane is contingent on the demonstration of character, consistency, and contribution to family. By the third week, something shifted. Ben came into the kitchen with a splinter in his palm. He'd been trying to fix the porch railing Tom built back in the 90s. Why didn't Dad ever update this place? He muttered. I looked at him. Because he built it with his own hands. You update a house you bought. You preserve a house you built. He didn't say anything after that. Just sat on the porch steps with a beer, staring at the fence he finally finished painting. Soon after, he took over the grocery runs. At first, it was all delivered. Then one day, he came home with fresh peaches from the local farmer's market, the kind Tom used to pick when we made cobbler in the summer. He stopped asking about the Wi-Fi. He started waking up early to beat the heat while cleaning out the gutters. He found Tom's old toolkit in the shed and spent hours organizing it. One night, I passed the open workshop door and heard him whisper to himself, "Damn, Dad, how'd you fit all this in here?" Then Amanda showed up. She stepped out of a rideshare in wedge heels and designer sunglasses. She was carrying a gym bag like she'd planned to stay the weekend. "Is this some kind of penance retreat?" She scoffed, looking around the kitchen. "You mowing lawns now?" Ben didn't respond. He just handed her a glass of water and pointed to the guest room. That night I heard them through the wall. "She's manipulating you." "No, she's protecting what Dad built. We deserve that house." "No, Amanda, we don't. I want to deserve it." She left before sunrise. 2 mornings later, I asked Ben to help me clean the attic. We found a shoebox. Inside was Tom's old Navy compass, some college letters, and a sealed envelope marked in Tom's handwriting. "For my son, open when ready." Ben didn't open it that night. He sat out on the porch, holding it with both hands like it weighed 100 pounds. Eyes locked on the tree line where Tom used to walk every Sunday afternoon. I watched from the screen door, didn't say a word, just stood there, hoping he was finally seeing what this was really about. Not money, not the deed, but the man he still had a chance to become. Ben opened the letter the next morning, not with ceremony, not with music swelling, just coffee, silence, and the worn kitchen table where Tom used to sit with him after baseball games. He didn't say a word while he read, didn't flinch, didn't blink. When he finished, he folded the page neatly and laid it beside his mug. His jaw clenched like it always had when he was 13 and knew he'd let his father down. I waited. Finally, he spoke. He knew I'd screw it up. "No," I said softly. "He knew you might, but he left room for the man you could become." Tom's letter was 1 page, no metaphors, no guilt. Just Tom's voice, steady, plain-spoken, and clear. "If you're reading this, it means you've come back, maybe for the right reasons, maybe not. I won't be there to see who you become, Ben, but your mother will. This house doesn't need a new kitchen. It needs a good man inside it. Prove to her and to yourself that you can be one." That was it. No amount, no deed, no list of demands, just a father's last boundary line. Ben spent the rest of that week sanding the deck in the August heat. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for cold drinks. He didn't even take calls from Amanda. I saw the phone ring. I saw her name light up the screen. He let it go silent. On Thursday, an envelope came addressed to me. Return label, Amanda Green Whitman. Inside was a legal notice petitioning for joint ownership of the house, claiming that, as Ben's legal spouse, she had shared interest in any future inheritance, claiming that my delayed transfer of title was potentially retaliatory, claiming I had influenced Ben's decisions under emotional duress. It was written by her father's law firm. Of course it was. I placed the letter next to Ben's coffee cup the next morning. He read it slowly. No outburst, no denial. "Did you know this was coming?" I asked. "She threatened it last week, said she'd protect her position if I didn't move things forward." "And what's your position, Ben?" He looked up at me, eyes tired but clear. "She doesn't want the house. She wants the shortcut, the payout, the leverage. And you?" "I want to earn it, not just the house, everything." That afternoon, we walked to Henry Morris's office. Henry didn't offer pleasantries. He was Tom's best friend for 30 years. He simply nodded and pointed to the file on his desk. "Looks like Amanda wants to escalate," he said. Ben stayed quiet. Henry turned to me. "You want to fight this legally?" I shook my head. "No need. Let her bring the papers. Let the court see where Ben stands and where she doesn't." Ben exhaled, a breath that had been caught in his chest for weeks. The next morning, Ben started building a raised garden bed in the backyard. Not because I asked, because he remembered Tom once said he wanted to grow tomatoes the way his mother used to. He spent 3 days digging, measuring, planting. On Sunday, I found him sitting on the back steps, dirt under his nails, sunburn on his neck, staring at a single green shoot breaking through the soil. "Looks like it's working," I said. He nodded. "I never thought about where food actually comes from." "You mean besides Whole Foods?" He laughed for the first time in weeks. "No, I mean nothing happens fast out here. You have to show up, water things, pay attention." He looked at me, the sun low behind him. "Is that what Dad did with me?" "Every day." That night, I pulled out the second letter Tom had written, one that Henry had given me in confidence. It wasn't for Ben. It was for me. If he's still looking for a shortcut, keep the house. If he's asking better questions, let him earn his way in. But if he starts showing up for you, Lenora, quietly, without reward, then he's ready. Trust what you see, not what he says. The next day, Ben came in from the yard with a blistered hand and said, "I was thinking, maybe I could fix up the tool shed and turn it into a studio. You could write in there. I haven't written in years. Maybe now's the time to start again." I looked at him, not the boy I raised, not the man I feared he'd become, but someone in between, someone worth hoping for. The court date was set for September 3rd. Amanda filed officially, petitioning for equitable division of anticipated assets, citing marital investment in potential inheritance. She wanted a judge to force the transfer of the house or, failing that, financial compensation. In other words, she was suing for something Tom hadn't even left to Ben. Not yet, not officially, not without proof. When the court documents arrived, I found Ben outside staining the new fence he'd rebuilt from scratch. He read them, then set them aside. "I'll handle it," he said. "You sure?" "I don't want your money. I want to be someone Dad would have trusted with it." Ben hired a local attorney, nothing flashy. He used his own savings, didn't ask me for help. He showed up to court in a suit that was too loose in the shoulders and shoes he hadn't worn since a wedding 5 years ago. Amanda arrived in full makeup, flanked by her father and a junior associate who looked like he'd just passed the bar. She smiled at me like this was brunch. It wasn't. The hearing lasted 1 hour. Amanda's side argued that she was entitled to a portion of the estate in anticipation of spousal inheritance. Ben's attorney responded simply, "There is no estate distribution. There is no title in his name. There is no guaranteed inheritance. What there is a mother who owns the house, and a father who made it very clear in writing that no one gets anything unless they've earned it." Amanda's face froze at the mention of Tom's letter. The judge looked over the documentation. Then she looked directly at Amanda. "So you're asking this court to split something you might never receive based on marriage to a man whose own father placed conditions on that inheritance?" Amanda didn't answer. Case dismissed. Outside the courthouse, Ben exhaled like he hadn't breathed in weeks. He didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He just turned to me and said, "Thanks for trusting me to show up." That night, he cooked dinner. Pasta with canned sauce and burnt garlic bread, but he set the table and folded the napkins. He even lit a candle. 3 weeks later, the first tomatoes from the garden came in. Ben lined them up on the windowsill. He didn't say a word, didn't need to. That weekend, he helped MS. Riley down the street fix her porch steps. He drove his old college roommate to the VA for a checkup. He started reading the books Tom used to keep on his nightstand, one chapter at a time, yellow highlighter in hand. He never asked again about the will, never once brought up the house. He just lived in it and took care of it, and in doing so, took care of us. One morning, I asked him to sit down at the kitchen table. I handed him a sealed folder. Inside was the transfer of title, signed and notarized, and a short note in Tom's handwriting dated a year before his death. If he comes back not for money but for meaning, if he builds more than he breaks, if he shows up when no one's watching, then give him the keys. He's earned them. Ben stared at it for a long time. "This is official?" he asked. I nodded. "You sure?" I pointed to the garden. "You watered something long enough to make it grow. That's more than most people ever do." Ben didn't throw a party. He didn't change the locks. He didn't paint the walls. He kept everything the same, except the way he showed up. He fixed what needed fixing. He called his aunts. He started Sunday dinners with the neighbors, Tom's old crowd, the ones who'd carried his casket. The house didn't get bigger, but it got full, of warmth, of purpose, of someone finally coming home. Epilogue. Amanda moved to Phoenix. Last we heard, she was dating a venture capitalist and calling herself a resilient strategist. Ben didn't follow, didn't text, didn't ask. He stayed. And every night after watering the tomatoes, he locks the same front door Tom built 38 years ago and walks into the home he didn't inherit. He earned it. This morning, I clipped basil from the garden and watched the sun rise over the hills Tom used to call his church. There was a breeze, soft and warm, carrying the smell of soil and sage. Ben was inside making coffee. His dog, a rescue mutt named Timber, snored quietly on the porch. The tomatoes were coming in faster than I could cook them, and for the first time in a long, long while, I felt settled. Not finished, not over it, just settled. A year ago, I buried my husband alone. 300 chairs, one sun-sized absence. But now I look out over this land and I see something Tom always knew could happen if you waited long enough, loved deep enough, and refused to give up on someone before they were ready. Ben changed. Not overnight, not because of guilt, not for a reward, but because he finally understood that what matters most isn't what you get. It's what you carry, what you build, and who you become when no one's applauding. He didn't just get the house. He became a man worthy of filling it. Some nights he reads on the porch, sometimes aloud, sometimes not. Sometimes he pauses in the middle of a sentence and says things like, "Dad would have hated this author," or, "Do you think he ever doubted I'd come around?" And every time I answer the same way. He left you the chance to prove him right. A few months ago, Ben converted the old woodshed into a writing studio for me, sanded the floors, painted the walls a soft gray blue, hung a photograph of Tom from the year we met, smiling like he'd just solved something only he could explain. I write there now, letters, essays, pieces of memory that deserve to be kept. I call it the garden room. Sometimes people ask if I feel like I won, if it feels good making Ben wait, holding the keys, letting Amanda twist in legal knots. But that's not what this was. This wasn't revenge. This was preservation, not of property, but of value. The values Tom believed in, the ones we almost lost. The ones that came back in the form of a tired young man holding a shovel instead of a spreadsheet. I still miss Tom. Of course I do. But I feel him everywhere now, in the smell of cedar on the deck, in the worn pages of The Old Man and the sea on the porch table, in the garden bed where the tomatoes grow thick and sweet because Ben shows up every morning without needing to be told. I once thought I buried Tom alone, but now I know I planted something that day. And it took a year of silence, of effort, of long afternoons and hard conversations. But something bloomed, not just a garden, but a son, a home. and a kind of justice that doesn't need a gavel or a lawyer, only time and love and a clear line in the sand.